Okay. Good evening to our audiences in Asia and good morning to our audiences in the UK. Welcome to the Inclusive and Resilience at Work digital event hosted by our CMI Malaysia Regional Board. My name is Samantha and I'm an International Coordinator at CMI, and I'll be shortly handing over to Suguna to begin today's event. If you have any questions during the digital event, you can ask them using the live chat box on the right of your screen, and we shall answer as many as we can during the Q&A. Today's session is being recorded and will be shared with you later today for those who book to attend. The event recording will also be available on the CMI website and CMI YouTube channel. Now over to Suguna Verumandi, Country Human Resource Director of HSBC Malaysia, to begin the event.
Thank you very much, Samantha. A very good afternoon, everyone, for participants from Asia, and good morning from participants from Europe. Welcome to today's topic, our digital event entitled Inclusiveness and Resilience at Work. In today's business environment, as we emerge out of pandemic, leaders and managers face numerous challenges in managing their workforce. There are a multitude of generations within the workforce today with differing expectations, needs, and demands. In addition, as we all know, we are operating in an environment with multiple nuances, among others, if I may share. Number one, a digital revolution. There is a massive acceleration in technology that changes the ways we work, practices, industries, societal norms, due to increasing interconnectivity and smart automation. Number two, COVID-19, massive implications for organizations. Many organizations had to reinvent their business model. Some even had to halt their businesses. Many mobilized their resources in order to keep them safe while sustaining their businesses. Well-being. Trends are increasingly showing that organizations have no options but to create an environment where it is employee-centric and at the same time infused with resilience. So all this information matters. As organizations evolve to be fit for future, a culture of inclusiveness and resilience matters. Today, we are going to take some time to explore this conversation on inclusiveness and resilience a little bit more in depth. And in order to do that, I am accompanied by two amazing speakers. Firstly, let's welcome Yap Shui, Chief People and Culture for Tune Protect. Welcome, Shui.
Hi, thanks, Suguna. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
And we also have Kishanjit Dillon, who's the Associate Director for Transfer Pricing, Crow Malaysia. Welcome, Kishan.
Hi, great to join the conversation with everybody, and good afternoon, good evening, or good morning to wherever you are dialing in from today.
All right, thank you very much. It's going to be a very interesting topic today. It's really an honor to have Shui, yourself, and Kishan joining me in this conversation. And hopefully, there are some sharing that the participants can learn. And as well as we will be welcoming questions from the participants, and hopefully there are some thinking process that the participants can share with us as well. So with that, firstly, the topic of resilience and inclusiveness, I think what matters is really going to the core of it, right? The why matters. So just to dwell on the why, if you could share, what does inclusiveness and resilience mean to your respective organization, and why it's important to your respective organizations? Maybe we can start with Shui.
Absolutely, both are critical, right? So Tune Protect, the organization where I'm from, we are we are a general insurer. So it's a conventional business, and a big part of our portfolio is actually travel. Okay, now, as you know, during the pandemic, with anything to do with travel is affected, and we were just one of the casualties as well, right? So, we had to, during the 2 months, we had to rally the organization to basically relook at how we do our business, right? So really looking at our business model, including our distribution channels, the products that we are selling, the pricing, and it all boils down to the workforce as well. So there was a lot of transformation that was done and still undergoing. There's a lot of change that needs to happen, a lot of learning, right? So this is a topic that we can talk about learning just all over by itself. And most importantly, there's a lot of things that we needed to unlearn and relearn as well, right? So that part, the organization, getting the employees together to rally behind all the changes. So that's where the resilience comes in, yeah. On the inclusion bit, it's also tied to our transformation agenda because with the direction that we are moving, it's all about the workforce, right? So it's about creating that sense of belonging, that connection with the employees, and looking at the way our business is moving as well. It's about making sure that we have a diversified workforce in place, right? So for example, when we start diversifying our products and the portfolio, so it's also about getting in people, employees who understand what's going on in the market, right? So multi-generational. We've also, targeting. We've also have targeted hiring outside of insurance, right? It's really a challenge, getting everyone from diverse backgrounds to come together, but very, very rewarding. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And how, so maybe a little bit, just a little bit more on that before I move on to Kishan, is that why if you can explore a little bit on why it really matters for the organization. I mean, we can see the transformation bit of it that's taking place. You need to make a change. Why is it so core to protect?
Well, I mean, okay, what we've done is that, our organization is really, really small compared to other insurers. So, as a whole, group wide, we're about 500 folk, right? Inclusion for us, basically, it's not just about working together, right? At the end of the day, it's about basically getting a group of employees and understanding where each one of us comes from, right? So, and how we've done it, and I guess, we've actually kind of like also woven it into our core values, which we can talk about a little bit later. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. We'll talk a little bit about the how, but that's a great starting point on why it matters to Tune Group, particularly very, it's exciting to hear how, your size of organization, the transformation that you're taking through, basically puts the organization in a situation you want the best, the brightest to come, and all different levels of people. And interestingly, like you say, even from outside insurance industry, right? You're bringing in to infuse that. That's a great change. We shall talk a little bit more on that. So Kishan, for your side, what does resilience and inclusiveness mean to your organization and why it's important for you?
Well, I think as I was hearing Sui recount her experiences, I think we are facing similar challenges in Crow Malaysia and also in a global perspective as well. When we talk about inclusiveness, I think it ties back to our values in Crow Malaysia. In that sense, it means a lot. We have four pillars in terms of our core values is more about we care, we share, we invest, and we grow. So under those pillars, we have diversity and mutual respect under the we care sort of portion of it. And basically we want to weave into the organization this sense of inclusiveness that everybody from different parts of the community in Malaysia can work in the same organization and want to be part of the organization in the sense that, and they can help create the organization of the future, because as a firm we are not only just selling a product, we are selling a service, we are providing value to our clients, and our greatest asset would be our people. And in order to cultivate that kind of culture, we need to bring everyone together. So that is the pathway that I think we are taking in terms of that. And I'm happy to say that within my team, I come from a division in tax, and I can say that we are very proud of our diversity. We have a lot of women leaders in tax at the moment. So I think for that, it is something that we are very proud of. Although we are not a large organization like HSBC, for example, but we are proud of that achievement that we have, and we are slowly working towards that. And in terms of resilience, I think it's a very interesting thing. We have in building more inclusive organizations, I think we increase our resilience as well. And the reason why I say that is because when we bring together the different parts of our community into the same workplace, into the same workforce, we create that sort of strength that is reflective of the community that we work in, that we serve in as well. And as a result, we find that it is actually a more resilient business model. You have greater innovation. So, for example, there have been a few studies. I'm a bit of a guy that reads up on research and all every now and then, and I've noticed that there's increasing amount of research that shows that greater diversity leads to better performance at work, and it is a part of resilience. So if you think about it, if you bring the diverse components of our community together in one place, you can create the innovation, you can create the organizational effectiveness that can then overcome external shocks to your business. So for example, during the pandemic, there is research out there that shows that diverse hospital teams provided better service to patients. They provided better healthcare. So there has to be something there that we are not unlocking. And if we are an organization that ignores these important points, diversity, equity, and inclusion, then we are going to lose out on these things. And I think one very statistic that I saw from McKinsey was that by improving gender diversity alone, okay, we can add 13 trillion US dollars to the global GDP in 10 years time by 2030. So that alone already shows you that if you are not on that pathway, you could be missing out on all the value that your organization could have, and that will just escape you if you don't take advantage of it, if you don't make sure. And not only just taking advantage of it for the profitable reasons, but more for the fact that it's the right thing to do. It's the step that all businesses should be moving towards, and I think that is what it means to us. And as we go along the journey, we will then head into that direction where we can then unlock some of these things, not only for us but for our clients as well.
Excellent, Kishan. That's a very good data that you've been sharing, right, in terms of how diversity impacts returns for organization, right? So one is, of course, in terms of need to do, and then a lot of people talk about the nice to do, but I mean, you brought a great data point on need to do. For organizations to grow, they need to do that. But of course, beyond that, it's also, like you say, having the right diverse mix brings the value for the customers that you're serving as well. So that's wonderful. Now, we spoke a lot about the whys, and if I may, we move the gear a little bit to how. Let's talk a little bit about how. I think, Kishan, you spoke a little bit about how you have it in your group in Crow is part of your value. I think that's amazing. Maybe we can start with you then to talk a little bit about how Crow builds this as part of the system in the organization. But of course, you can bring other examples in as well. And Shui then will get back to you on that.
Right. So I think in terms of the how, I would say that it's very, I would say it's not an easy thing to achieve, right? So in Crow Malaysia, we have our values, we have our, like I said about we care, we have that pillar there. But not only that, on the global level, we have a framework for business decision making, which is called the Art of Smart. So the Art of Smart decision making. So it consists of 4 main areas, which is boldness, growth, innovation, and lastly is diversity. So when we talk about diversity, people always say it's diversity is the how, right? So it's the actual thing, but the inclusion is the result, right? So we try to be more diverse, and at the same time, by walking that pathway, we become more inclusive. So just to share, like in terms of the Art of Smart research for Crow Global, prior to the pandemic, we found that that diverse organizations and teams at the global level, right? So I'm from Crow Malaysia, but we get access to this research, and we do read up on it, and it was found that about 3,680% on average in growth over 5 years in terms of revenue per employee for diverse organizations. So if you think about it, there is a business case for it, right? There is a business case for that. But at the same time, in addition to the business case that we have, we also find that if the local strategy, now if you're talking about the global side, the local strategy aligns to this, we can then represent and become more inclusive, representing the community that we are a part of. So how do we do that? How do we go about doing that? I think the one word that sticks out to me is intention, right? So we have these four pillars, and diversity is one of them, right? So in the art of smart decision making, smart businesses would make diversity their main priority, and the intention is very, very important. To do it intentionally at all levels of your organization, when you serve your clients, when you hire people, when you review people, when you roll out processes, the inclusiveness needs to be replicated throughout the organization. So if people are not being, if people are not feeling like they are part of the community in the organization, then they are not going to feel included, and inclusiveness is going to be impacted, and then you are not going to unlock the value that relates to the business case, right? So I think for us, we try to push it on the micro level, right? So like I said, we are a part of a network, right? But we primarily serve a lot of local businesses, and we do serve multinationals as well. So being in that space, it doesn't take the shape of a very, very structured and rigid organized framework like what you may have if, let's say, you are working for a very, very large scale organizations like maybe your Exxon Mobils and those kind of level of organization. But what we do is we try to embed it in our culture. We make sure that people feel like this is a place that they want to be, working at. They feel part of the community, part of the family that we have at Crow Malaysia. And I think in our team, we tend to do that. So I have a very open door policy. I try to make sure that everybody feels included and part of the decision making. So we try our best to lead in that way. And I think by doing this at the micro level, it then filters up, and then in the end, it affects the whole organization positively. So that's from my perspective, where I'm coming from. I'm also eager to hear from maybe the other perspectives on this. So hand it over to you, Suguna.
Sure. I mean, a lot of core things that you touched there. Wonderful, Kishajet. And Sri, anything you would like to add from your end?
Yeah, I mean, Kishan, I think the approach that you have is actually quite similar to what we've done as well, because we don't have a sophisticated framework to address this, but we wanted to do it in a way such that it resonates with all levels of our workforce. So we've actually also weaved it into our core values, right? So we have 4 core values, which is make it simple, be customer obsessed. We have one that's better together, and then the one that's be bold and curious, right? So when you talk about, for example, a concept as inclusion, right, it can mean many things to many individuals, right? So what we've done is basically we've weaved it into our core values in a sense that we've also identified what are the behaviors that we want to see when you talk about inclusion, right? What are the specific behaviors? We've spelled that out. So we actually came up with sort of like a culture playbook. We outlined some of the behaviors there. We said we wanted to see based on feedback by the employees, right? And how will these behaviors translate into results for self, for your team, as well as for the organization, right? So that's the granular level we went down to the ground. So inclusion for us is captured under better together. So it's not just about a group of people working together, but what are the expectations that we expect to see. We would like people to be accountable not only for themselves, but basically accountable for the group at large, right? We always tell everyone that we're all working in a team, so everything that you do will affect somebody else along the value chain, right? And that's how we position it. Yeah. For resilience, it's about having the ability to bounce back, right? And what we've gone down to the ground and we've translated it for everyone is we're undergoing a transformation, and as a general insurer, we're trying to do a lot of things that a lot of other insurance may not be in a position to do just as yet, right? So it's about the ability to learn, unlearn, relearn, and most importantly, it's about making lots of mistakes and getting up after you make the mistakes and learning from it, right? So those are the few key behaviors that we are constantly promoting throughout the organization, because that's the kind of culture and the kind of mindset that we want to create, right? And my boss has this phrase that he likes to talk about, right? Come and work for us. We are fun, but we are uncomfortable, right?
Nice. Nice.
That's
I like your
interesting. That's
boss.
nice.
I like your voice already.
Yeah, so that always gets a lot of people talking. Oh, what do you mean when you say uncomfortable, right? So that's when the conversation starts going. Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. I think it'll be nice to explore that a little bit, right? When we move on to best practices. So, just in the wanting to make sure that we are also inclusive in our digital event today, I thought maybe we just take um, some questions from the participants. So there is this great question, if I may just quickly read it out, yeah, Shui and Kishan. How is the day-to-day leadership impacted by diversity? I would expect for the leaders to have broadened their communication styles to lead a diverse team as opposed to a homogeneous team. So it's an interesting question about leadership on a day-to-day basis and their communication style, especially when it comes to having a diverse team these days, right? Any thoughts, Kishan, Shui?
Yeah, I think this is quite an interesting question. I was happy to see that we're thinking about the leadership perspective, because when we look at leadership, I think there are many different styles that are exhibited in the workplace. And when you think about a leader, it's more about decisiveness, acting in urgent situations. Being authoritative is some of the things that might come to play. But one of the things that we need to build is actually ties into something that I am trying to research as well. Currently doing my doctoral research on this area, on hybrid leadership. Right. So, what kind of a leader do you actually need to be? Do you is a leadership style something like very monolithic in nature, where you can't move? If you can't move, then will your organization be impacted? So sometimes I think what we need is, in order to manage and lead more diverse teams, a hybrid approach is something that is needed. So when we say hybrid, what we mean is, like, if let's say you are more of a consensus driven kind of leader, right? So that needs to be built into the process, in addition to being a little bit more directive. Because, for example, when you have greater diversity, I think the challenge is that everybody comes from different communities, different backgrounds, different experiences, and different spaces in wherever you're operating in. So there needs to be a certain guiding hand to lead them to the organization's objectives. But at the same time, you want to take into consideration everybody's views. So you can't say that you are going to be a top-down command and control kind of leader, but and ignore the consensus part. So you need to kind of mesh it together. And by developing a consensus, and by talking to people a bit differently, and on their different concerns on a certain topic or a certain business decision, then you can sort of pull everything together, and then you'll be like, okay, I've talked to everybody, and I think this is where we need to go. And then you put it to the floor and see what happens. So that's a very democratic, but also kind of guiding the organization into where it needs to go, because the leader needs to do that. It needs to push the organization to the direction that is in line with corporate objectives and all of those other things. But you can't ignore the nuances in different communities, concerns that people may have. Maybe the older generation may feel a certain way as compared to the younger generation. Maybe between genders there might be different opinions. So getting all of this together is only to the organization's benefit. And then once you have that platform done, then you execute the business decision. And I think if you do that, it'll be interesting to see, and I think it will lead to better outcomes. So that's what I feel on that, on the leadership point.
Wonderful. It sounds like you have already done your thesis, your PhD thesis is done,
Halfway there. Halfway there.
You've just articulated wonderful points there, Kishan. Shui, anything you want to add?
Well, for us, right? So we have been talking about that. Actually, is one of the key hot topics in our leadership agenda. Okay, now we recently rolled out a leadership framework. What we did was, as the organization was transitioning, we realized that we needed to also have a common leadership framework as to how we want to run the organization. Yeah. So we actually went and got feedback from the ground, from the employees, from the management team, even the board of directors, as to how we want to do it. And last year we rolled out our leadership competency framework, where we actually set out some key areas where we said that, hey, how do we look? How do we expect leaders, or how do we want our leaders in Tune Protect to behave? What are the key areas that we're looking at? Right. So all of these focus areas, what we've done was we've actually broken it down into 6 key areas. If I'm not mistaken, on the top of my mind, we just wrote out one was basically inspiring others with your vision, right? The second one is drive collaboration across groups. So again, right, the element of inclusivity is weaved inside here. Yeah.
Yes.
Of course, we have one about focus on customer, right? The fourth one, if I remember, is empower with accountability, right? The fifth one is about being a responsible entrepreneur, right? So this one was quite interesting. It generated a lot of conversation as, what does it mean when you say that, we need to behave like an entrepreneur, right? And of course, the fourth one is basically, we need our people leaders to be developing and nurturing our talent as well, right? So among all these key elements, we are basically, we've come up with some development frameworks to make sure that all the leaders, all the senior managers, or our heads are aligned in how we want to run the organization. Yeah. Going on the flip side, to the question, I think that was posted on communication styles, right? Now, this is also something that, we've been talking about a lot of times. Communication is so critical nowadays, right? And when I say communication, I don't just mean sitting here and sending out emails, or being in the WhatsApp chat groups and talking. It's about really the engagement that you have with your employees, and knowing how to communicate to an individual in a manner that resonates with them, right? So I feel that part also is, it's an area that a lot of leaders need to focus on. Yeah. And we have, about a couple of years ago, we did an experiment where we ran a series of workshops. Basically, it's about communication skills, trying to understand, self, as well as understand how you as self and you communicate, and how you relate it to the different personas that you see within the workplace, right? And you would think that for even our senior leaders who've been in the organization for many years, right, you would think that this would be a skill or competency that that they are familiar with. But a lot of them came out after the workshop and said that wow, I've learned so many things about myself, right? that that it just makes me realize that this thing is a continuous learning experience, communication, right? And even the junior guys on the ground come and the feedback that they gave us was like, I never realized, right, how strategic we need to be when it comes to communicating, right?
Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
think I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Wonderful. There's just so much we can get into just when we talk about communication per se. I think it'll be interesting to run another session, another digital event, right? CMI, just talking about communicating with impact post pandemic. What does it mean? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Best
yep.
practices.
So the
Yeah.
CMI guys behind the scene, I think they'll probably have to take note.
Let's take note of this. All right. Let me just encourage the participants to, you can send in any questions at the comment, and we'll be picking up for our excellent panel members to share some of their experiences on the questions that you may be having. Let me just move gear to some of the best practices, if Shui, yourself and Kishan can share. We would like to hear some of the best practices that has emerged in the recent times, especially learning from what worked well during the pandemic, that organizations have begun to realize, let's just continue with this practice. It makes sense. What would that one practice be? Of course, you can share more than one, but what would that one or two practice you like to share that your organization has actually adopted? As initially they were experimenting during the pandemic, but now it's a reality for your organization. If you could share, perhaps Kishan, we start with you.
Right. I think the one thing that comes to mind is probably working from home and having that sort of flexibility that we have there, right? So, I think during the pandemic, this was something that was very new to all of us. But what we realized is that I think going forward, the workplace of the future, as if you're a CMI member, you know that CMI talks about this a lot in terms of hybrid working and the kind of managerial challenges that arise from hybrid working. So I think that is something that is here to perhaps stay in a certain form for the foreseeable future. There are some countries who are even talking about 4-day working weeks, and I think that's being piloted in the UK, or if I'm not mistaken, I saw the news, or some countries around the world. So that's being piloted as well. So um, for us, it's working from home and having a greater flexibility, and I think that practice does result in greater inclusion to a certain extent, because you do pull people from different places and you allow them to not only have the balance to address their needs at home. For example, we have some people in our team who are recently new mothers. They have just had their first child. So I think managing that is very difficult, especially in today's environment with all the different challenges and the demands of work and all of that. So there is an option. If you want to work from home, you could continue to do that, or you could come into the office and have a bit of flexibility. It really is up to you. And I think that is, to me, I think that is the best essence of it, is the organization transforming from being a rigid, very structured organization to something that's more human. So if you were at home and you were dealing with your family or dealing with your friends, and you'd be like, oh, I'm not comfortable to maybe go to this restaurant, or I'm not comfortable to travel 20 km to go to here. So the organization needs to transform into that aspect as well. So the hybrid working styles, the hybrid working arrangements that we have at within our tax team is catered towards that. So you have that flexibility built into it, but at the same time, we don't want everybody to work from home all the time, because creating culture is important as well. So for example, I think I was talking about this as well to some other people, and we have things like, if you had a very good close knit team pre-pandemic, and you went into the pandemic and you came out on the other side and no one left, no one did anything, you would find that remote working is very, very productive, because you all know your work styles, you all know everything that you're doing, and everybody's familiar with one another. But if you have new people coming on board, then inclusivity becomes a challenge because you can't bring those people into the conversation, especially if they're from a different community, especially from their different work style, different age group. You cannot bring them into the fold because you're not seeing them. You're not there, they're not in front of you, you're not interacting with them as organically as you can when you are in the office. So that's why the complete work from home practice is not going to result in a very good outcome, I believe. So it needs to be a bit of a balance. So the hybrid working thing, I think, is something that's here to stay. And if it's crafted in the right way, it can create the inclusion that is necessary to drive the organization forward. And at the same time, it also builds resilience because we never know. I mean, we have gone through a pandemic, a once in a 100-year lifetime event, once in a 100-year event. Now we have geopolitical tensions in the form of the Ukraine-Russia war. So we do not know what's going to happen. Climate change is becoming much more difficult to predict. So maybe this is something that needs to happen and needs to be part of the conversation as we go forward. So I think that is something that we have kept and it has stayed. But how it unfolds, maybe 1-2 years down the road, it remains to be seen.
Yep. Yep. Shui, anything you want to add to that?
We also have implemented hybrid, right? Our working arrangement is basically quite straightforward. You just need to turn up to the office just twice, 2 days a week, right? Now why hybrid? Why not 100% work from home? Similar to Kishan, right? We are undergoing a transformation, right? So, we're hiring a lot of new employees, a lot of team leads, trying to build a new culture. And the feedback that we got from the ground is that, it's really tough to hit the ground running when you haven't met your team, right? Because meeting them online is really different from meeting them face to face. The engagement, the coaching, the mentoring it may be very efficient, but effective may not be for quite a number of people, right? So what we have decided as an organization is that we'll do a 2-day work week for now. And, because we have different teams within the organization, to Kishan's point, some of them are very, very self-sufficient. Some of them with bigger teams, they might need a little bit more hand holding as well. So what we've done also is we've told our department heads is that, we will give you full flexibility and autonomy to manage your teams as you see fit, right? So far, fingers crossed, it's working quite good, right? And for some of the department heads that have challenges, we do engage them to see how we can iron out all this. A lot of teething challenges in the beginning, but so far so good. Yep.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah,
What
and
I'm picking up, yeah. Carry on. Shui, you wanted to say something.
so I just wanted to share also, and this was the feedback that was also coming out was that with this working from home arrangement, the managers were also telling us that, hey, sometimes it can become really clinical because when I talk to my team, right, it's mostly about just work, right? So we've actually taken the decision and we've mandated all the teams, hey, you guys need to have get together sessions. You need to do your own team building, get away, go bowling or whatever that they're comfortable with, right? And I think some of the teams are really happy. Say, hey, a passport to really go out and have some fun right now. But we realize that there are still some teams who are a bit hesitant. So we've mandated to say that, hey, by X time you need to do this, right? So hopefully that's gonna get some good results as well.
It's interesting when I was just hearing out the observations both of you have. It definitely comes across hybrid working model. It's not just about where you work from, it's about when and how you work, right? It's a lot about creating the culture. It's a lot about the flexibility, the empowerment, and learning along the way as well. So
Yes.
definitely there's no one size fits all,
Yes.
just navigating
Exactly.
and wonderful, wonderful. I see a question coming up. So maybe we take that question and after that we continue with our discussions. Yeah. So there's one question here. Thank you for this question. It says that research has shown that because of the pandemic, a lot more women have been forced to leave employment because they have to take care of their children at home. What do you think companies can do to avoid this negative impact on diversity? So this is a real case, right? I mean, definitely, I think there was also research in UK that clearly showed, um, unfortunately, many women were impacted during pandemic. They were among the first ones leaving the workforce to care for the family. So how can organizations, what can they do to avoid this? Any thoughts, Kishan, Shui?
Um, I think you need to look at your policies. I mean, honestly speaking, right, this is one of the key reasons why we also decided to go hybrid. We wanted to give an opportunity to our women workforce because we took a look at our population pool, right? And we realized that a sizable percentage of our senior leaders, especially the women, were the ones who had really young children, school-going children, and those are the ones that struggle the most because in Malaysia, as you know, like our education system, online, offline, online, depending on whether you're in national school and international school, right? So we said that, hey, you know what? Whatever goes on at home will be translated into the workplace, right? We want you to be happy at work, but in order for you to be happy at work, we need you to have your home stuff sorted out as well. So that was one of the reasons why we have this hybrid working arrangement in place, because we wanted to give them flexibility to manage their time as they see fit. And I mean, we are flexible. I would say that in the sense that even though we say 2 days a week, we do recognize that there are, a group of employees who probably need a little bit more flexibility than that. And that's a conversation that we're always open to. Like I said, we actually give our department heads flexibility to manage their team as they see fit, right? I'm not sure whether we've probably gotten it right all the time in all the cases, but it's an experiment that we are trying out. So as and when we go along, we'll just take the learnings whenever we can and just try to implement it for the next round.
Fantastic. Kishan, anything you would like to add to that?
I think I agree very much with what Sui is saying. I think autonomy is important in the management teams to deal with a lot of different issues. I'm very saddened when I hear, when I read the reports. I think Celine has pointed out research has shown, and I think I am also aware of such research where they are showing that 50 years of diversity and inclusion could be rolled back because of this pandemic. And I think it's very sad because we are not behaving in a human way towards, if in this case we're talking about women, so we're not behaving in a way that is understanding enough. And I think if you incorporate that sense of humanity and flexibility into your approach, I mean, we are still very much married to the idea of Frederick Taylor of management sciences, which we learn in university, where everybody must work 40 hours a week. And, these are all archaic ideas that came out, in the 1900s, before World War II, even, and those were very different times, but we are still ingrained with this thinking that, I cannot be productive if I need to fetch my child from school at maybe 3 in the afternoon or something like that, or maybe 2 in the afternoon, and I can't step away and come back and then continue working. Like, why can't I do that? What is stopping me from, if I am producing results, if I am meeting the KPIs, if I am doing all of that, if I can do that, or if I am doing even better, maybe, in those kind of situations, because I don't have to worry so much, then I think your organization will benefit from things like this. It's all about, you know And in terms of the hybrid working environment, I think it's very important to recognize the fact that, okay, we spent like 20, 30 years in the digital age where we had companies like Google, building amazing workspaces where you've got like, your buffets, and you've got like kindergartens on the Google campus and stuff like that, right? You've got all of that. And now suddenly you've been told to work from home.
Yeah.
And companies need to understand that they need to also look at the environment in which people are working in at home, right? They need to, because you are now asking the employee to not come into work, don't come into my space, and then be at home. I should take an interest in what's happening in your home as well, whether the
Yes.
environment you have there is safe enough, whether it is good enough, whether it is can enable you to be a productive person at work. And if not, I need to provide solutions for that, right? Because I can't just direct you to work from home. But if you are suffering so much at home as well, maybe due to other circumstances, or you don't have the right infrastructure, it will deter productivity. It will be to the detriment of your mental health. It will be to the detriment of your morale as part of the team. So I think that is where the organization needs to go. It needs to go into a more human level and understand really the issues and be flexible, be adaptable to the teams that you are under. So like I said, I think Sui's point on autonomy to management teams are very important. You can have an overarching policy on this, but there should be some level of flexibility to allow people to have some exceptions and workarounds and things like that, so that we all feel like we are still part of the organization and we are taking care of each other's needs, and at the same time we can all make a living and create value for the customers and the clients that we are serving, right? So if none of this impedes that, in fact, if it makes it even better, then I don't see any reason why we should shy away from that.
Yeah.
Fantastic, Kishan. Just building on that, I'm just checking and seeing if there are any questions at this point, but let's see. I think there isn't. There's some great comments about learning and adjusting along the way. I think very aligned to Shuyi, what you're saying, and Kishan, what you're saying as well. Now,
I think
just
I want to
going
thank.
back,
Sorry, I just want to thank
yes,
Kelvin for
yes,
giving us the information on the
yes.
working for the 4-day work pilot that's being done in the UK. Yes, it's being done in the UK at the moment. So just now, yeah.
Yep, yep. It's in yes, that's what Calvin has mentioned. Thank you, Calvin. You make some great comments there in terms of how it's a journey we have to learn and make adapt.
Yeah. It's a lot of
Fantastic,
learning, testing, going back to the drawing board, right? Yeah. And
fantastic.
I'm saying I'm sure that all organizations, not only Tune and Crow, we are going through this journey.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just talking a little bit on that, right? We're talking about journey, we're talking about experimenting, navigating along, and bringing the crowd with us, bringing including everyone in the process as well, and not letting anyone just fall back. That's really our role as organization. If Kishan, yourself, and Shui can share a little bit about what are the challenges you face in your respective organization, or broadly, what are some of the challenges you have heard organizations face when trying to, build the culture of inclusiveness and resilience? Maybe one or two challenges, and if you can take us through how that's being mitigated. So perhaps Shui, we start with you.
Okay. I guess the first one we faced was when we started embarking on it was to the point of inclusion specifically, right? I think not everyone understood what inclusion meant, right? Because realized that different levels of the organization had different interpretations of what inclusion meant. And the second one is that, even at the leadership level, right, the expectation of what inclusion brings. So we had to bring everyone together on that, right, which was one of the reasons why we weaved it into our core values, right? So, this is how we see inclusion. um, this is these are the behaviors that we would like to see our employees exhibit. These are the behaviors that our leadership team need to exemplify and promote, right? And our core values basically define how we operate as an organization. And as for prospective employees, right? If this is something that resonates with you, right, then come into the organization and join us, right? So
Nice.
the basically creating that understanding for the workforce as to how inclusion is relevant to them personally and as well to the organization. Yeah, we wanted to make it a little bit more personal because if you talk about macro level, yes, we all know the business imperatives for inclusion, but how do you make it personal to the workforce?
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Um, Kishan, one example before I move on to the next question. We are about 10 minutes away before ending the session. Kishan, maybe anything to add on the challenge and
No, I
mitigation?
think, yeah, I think that's quite valid points as well. I think for us the challenge would be to bring everybody on board. Like I said, we are currently in a period of growth, so by having a growth period, you tend to onboard more people during the pandemic, and also now in a hybrid working environment. So the challenge is to how to onboard people successfully, and how to get them into the team, adapting to the culture, feeling included in the conversation. So that is a very pertinent challenge, and also more so from being a technical organization, we need to upskill people. So maybe they come into the organization, they need to get on board with a lot of technical ways of doing things, especially in the tax field, being updated on the way of doing things, and the technical knowledge, the legal knowledge, and all of that is very important. So that has been a challenge, I would say, especially working remotely, and also getting everybody included into the conversation during the pandemic. And now it's getting slightly better. So I think in the future, this will be something that is going to be a huge challenge, and it can impact resiliency as well. Because if you can't do that successfully, then your organization can't really face the headwinds as the environment changes and fluctuates as the years and months progress down the road. So that would be something that we need to watch out for.
Okay, excellent. I'm just looking at the time check. There's just a couple of comments here from Sean Lely. We perhaps have to address that separately in the interest of time. But Sean, thank you so much for the question. There's one other question that has been sent to us in terms of, and I think this is a great one also to kind of wrap up our session for today. The question is, what would be a good starting point to support others in their approach for inclusiveness and resilience at the workplace? Any advice for those who are starting this journey?
Oh, communicate, communicate,
And
communicate. Okay,
communicate.
so for us, I mean, for us was basically number one, the leadership needs to be fully on board. I think that is absolutely critical because this is not an agenda that is driven only by HR or the CEO, right? It's a collective agenda that needs to be owned collectively by the leadership team. So, an aligned understanding of what it means to the organization and how we as leaders can help promote it, right? And the second one would be, I would say, it's a lot of communication, right? And it's not just in a town hall, it's not just in an email or a PowerPoint, but it's really reiterative communication, again and again, to different teams at different forums, right? So I think that's really, really important, right? And I do know some organizations have hard metrics on it as well, right? Some say that, hey, if you don't measure it, nothing's going to happen. So that's true to a certain extent, right? So I think it really depends on uh, how deep you want to go, right? So for us, I mean, I can share. We have it weaved into our core values, right? So we are looking at behaviors. On the diversity element, when it comes to gender, we also do have a hard metric that we have actually gone out and announced to everyone in the sense that we're also looking at our leadership pipeline. right? And we realized that, as you go more up within the organization, the proportion of women leaders actually decrease. So we actually have a target by the end of 2023, we'll have 50% of our leadership pipeline equal male-female, whereas it's about 30-70 at the moment.
All right, great point. Kishan, anything to add? Any advice for those who are starting this journey?
I think the most important thing is to ensure that the exercise or the effort to become a more inclusive and resilient organization is not a check the box exercise. You know, I think that is the worst thing that you can do. And to give a very blunt example, we need more diversity on the board, so let's hire a woman to be on the board, and then that's it. We've become a more inclusive organization. I think that is the worst way you could approach this topic and management of the future. It needs to be, like as we mentioned, a buy-in from the leadership. It needs to be a buy-in, a commitment from the top management of the organization to become a more inclusive organization, to become a more resilient organization through inclusiveness. So that is something that needs to be done, and it needs to be done with intention. It needs to be done without the metrics. Hard metrics, I think, are important. What gets measured gets done. I think we can all appreciate that, but to approach it in that religious manner, or that rigid manner, I would say, to correct myself, it's more of it's to the detriment of the organization, because the last thing you want is to show people that, yes, on paper I'm very diverse, but I don't feel it. When organizations meet and when people meet together and they talk to one another, they don't feel it. They don't feel that this is part of our DNA, and that is the worst outcome. Because if you don't feel it as being part of the organization, you don't feel that inclusiveness and that respect within the organization, then you have failed, in terms of building an inclusive organization. So I would say that in the best piece of advice that I can give is start the journey right, get the intention correct, get the commitment from the leadership team. Take that thing, like what Sui said, take that away from HR. It needs to be a top management priority. It's HR facilitates, very important people, because you are the people experts, but it needs to be an overall organization effort. So I think that is the best thing that you can do, and please don't make it a check the box exercise. Very, very terrible. It will create all sorts of bad outcomes for the organization, and you will end up feeling like you don't belong to a real organization at the end of the day. That's from me.
Thank you very much. So with that, we have come to the end of the session. A couple of thoughts. Number one is to the panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your observations, truly coming from the heart. Truly coming from the heart. Thank you so much for sharing. And then to the participants, great questions. I can see there are some additional questions. So sorry we're not able to take on that questions today, but through CMI Malaysia, we will be in touch with you to respond to you separately. And with that, thank you very much for having us in this conversation. And Samantha, back to you.
All right, so thank you, everyone. That's it for today's session. Thank you to everyone who joined us, and thank you, Suguna, Sui, and Kishinjit for your insights and expertise. Don't forget, if you're a member of CMI, you can log into Management Direct using the link in the live chat, and you can find a wide range of exclusive and practical development resources and much more. And if you're not yet a member or subscriber, you can join our community via the link that's also in the live chat to gain full access to our Management Direct portal. You can also sign up to the free CMI newsletter for the latest trends and tips for managers and leaders. Please do take a few moments to let us know your thoughts on today's event by completing the evaluation form, which we have included in the link in the live chat. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.